All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Studio Series 86 Leader Class Dinobot Snarl. Yeah, the next of our, big Leader Class Dinobots from Studio Series. And yeah, this is a pretty nice figure, all things considered. Now, obviously, turns into a big Stegosaurus here, and it's a fairly good Stegosaurus mode. It is a little bit, wide, I would say, a little bit wider than I'd like it to be. Also, I kind of wish that the plates were a little bit bigger because they're a little bit small on there. Also, I'm not in love with the way that they're like angled like that. I kind of wish they were just straight up and down, but those are all kind of like nitpicky things. Ultimately, I think it's a pretty good looking mode. It's a little bit strange how the tail kind of like comes down from the underneath here and I don't know, like comes out of the body like that. I just think that's a little bit strange, but mostly you don't notice that from most angles because of just the way the legs are. In terms of articulation, the head can't really do anything other than you can open the mouth, which is nice. Looks nice there. The front legs here, they're on ball joints at the base, so you get a little bit of like rotation, back and forth like that, and then obviously can rotate around like this. They're very stiff ball joints, which is kind of nice, but maybe a little bit too stiff. And then he does have a hinge at the knee here, which can go about that far. And the back legs, which will end up being the robot mode arms, they can rotate around like this on a ratchet joint. Now, because of the way that the shoulder actually attaches for robot mode, it's actually at this joint, so it can't like rotate the legs out like that. You can only kind of like rotate them in like that, which is a weird look. So there's no real like outward movement. Let's see, at the knee here, we can bend up like that. And then there's also a separate hinge here at the ankle, and then also a rotation at the ankle. So, you're not getting really any dramatic poses, but I don't know what you'd really want other than just like having him stand there anyway. He does come with a sword here. It is kind of like a softer plastic, unfortunately, but otherwise still looks nice. Now, unfortunately, there's no real good way to store it. Like you'd think, given just like the huge flat underside, that you could just have the sword store underneath like that, but there is no hole for that. So you could kind of like peg it onto his hip or peg it onto the top here, facing in either direction. That does not really work for me. Personally, I just kind of leave the sword off to the side because, if not all 5 of them can have like good weapon storage in both modes, then I kind of just like leave the weapons all out together just because they're going to be just to keep them consistent. But, this is another one of the ones where it doesn't really have a good place to go in the actual dinosaur mode, unfortunately. In terms of comparisons in this mode, for a standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe in his robot mode, just so you can see how he scales with an average size deluxe there. And then similarly, here he is with Optimus Prime from Earthrise, just so you can see how they look together. Then here he is with the 2 previous versions, or well, really 1 previous version of Snarl, the Power of the Primes version, and then also the knockoff upscaled Black Mamba version of the Power of the Primes version, just so you can see what he looks like with them. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the actual shaping of the dinosaur, I feel like I still prefer the Power of the Primes version in terms of it just like looking like a more accurate Stegosaurus with more proportionally large spikes that can actually stick straight up, and I don't know, it just works a little bit better for me in terms of like not being, super wide also. But then obviously the size is what you want here. And then I also do prefer the head on the new one. It's very cartoon accurate without being like too goofy looking. It's like a nice blend between the, more techie toy detail and then the really cartoony head that Snarl had. So, I still like this one better overall, but in terms of just like the shaping of the dinosaur, I think these guys do a little bit better. And then obviously here he is with our previous Studio Series Dinobots. There's Slag and Grimlock and Sludge. Are gonna be kind of hard to get on frame here. Grimlock's kind of peeking through the top there, just so you can see what they look like together so far. 4 down, 1 to go, and then I guess just for fun, here he is with the Black Mamba upscaled Swoop. It's just so you can see what he looks like with the other Dinobot team, and then I guess here's Slash too, but they're not all fitting on frame anyway. So, but yeah, no, obviously a big chunky dinosaur definitely fits in well with the previous ones that we've gotten, which is really nice. I'm just excited to see how they do Swoop, because Swoop is kind of a tricky one to do because he's a bit different from the other ones, because like obviously in pterodactyl mode you'd want him to be a little bit smaller, but then in the cartoon he was the same height as the rest of them. So I feel like we're just going to kind of end up getting a swoop that seems a little bit too big in pterodactyl mode, which is probably the right call overall. I think that's the direction I would go to, just to have them scale with the other four. But, you know, we'll see how that turns out when we actually get to it. But yeah, no, pretty good dinosaur mode. Definitely a little bit thick and chunky, but still nice, satisfying, large figure. Now, for transformation, first thing you want to do is you want to take this panel here at the top here and just untab it. It kind of pegs into these gold sections, which will be the toes. And then you want to take these sections in the bottom here and untab those, just because they tab into this section right here. So once you've done both of those things, then you can take the entire body and slide it out like that. And then you want to take the feet and just kind of fold them up like this for now, just to get them out of the way. And then I kind of do that with the back legs too, just because it also makes it easier for how the arms end up. And then you want to split this whole section here down the middle, and then we can kind of take these panels with the first two plates there and just untab them and rotate them up like that. And then you want to take this entire section one at a time and then kind of unfold it at the knee. And then as you do this, the head will start to rotate into the leg, which is why you want to flip out those panels first. And then once you've gotten it that far, you can just push the head the rest of the way. I like how it's painted on the inside here to actually, you know, more closely match the gray. I mean, it's, you know, a bit more shiny than the actual plastic, but better than it being just like an orange part. And then once you've done that, then you can fold this up, and you want to make sure that this tab goes back into that little slot there, which doesn't always happen naturally. So you want to make sure that that happens so it's actually locked into place. And then you can take the toe and flip it up, and then you want to take the dinosaur mode leg, and then on this panel it will untab and rotate around like this, and then fold the foot in like this, and then take the entire thing and fold it in on the ball joint. And then this little tab here on this section will kind of loosely go into the section, like this big hollow cavity on the inside of the leg there. It can be kind of hard to line up, and it's not really like a, you know, like there's no just specific slot for that section. It's just kind of like into the you know, hollow section of the leg. And then once you've done that, then you can rotate this in and tab it into the inside of the leg. And then obviously do that on both sides here. Let's fold the head in, fold this panel up, make sure that it tabs into place properly, flip up the toe, rotate this leg around, fold in the knee, and then get that to the inside and close up the legs. And there we have the legs all done. Then we just want to rotate them around at the waist. I'm going to adjust the camera here in a sec so we can actually get him on frame for the rest of this. Getting a lot taller here, obviously. And then for the arms, what you want to do is actually rotate around the foot like this, and then fold it in like that. And then you want to bend this down just enough so that you can take the hands, and they actually flip out of this section here. So you want to flip them around like that and then lock them into place. And then you can take the lower section of the dinosaur leg and fold it into the forearm like that until it clicks. And then untab the arm like this, and then bring this section back until this section clicks into place, and there you have the arm. And I think that's a really neat arm transformation there. So just like that on the other side here. Just like that. And then you want to take the section with the actual spikes on it, and just it will untab. You want to untap it from this black section too. That's important. So you want to bring that up like that, and then just bring that up for now. And then this will actually, it only really comes out so the feet can kind of fit in there in dinosaur mode. So you just want to tab that into place just like that. Then we can kind of compress the body back up like it was before. And then we want to split the tail here just like this, and then rotate it out to the side. And you do that so that you can actually get the head out, because the easiest way to get the head out is actually to push it from the underneath here. And also the panel that it's on is actually pretty tight. So you just want to rotate the head up like that. And then last but not least, we just take the panel with the spikes on it, and it'll rotate down. It's got a tab right there that will go into that slot right there. And then two tabs on this section that will go into those slots right there. So you just want to compress it all so those actually sit in place. And there we have Snarl in his robot mode. And yeah, while I think that the Stegosaurus mode has a little bit of give or take, you know, in terms of your preference than with the Power of the Primes version, robot mode I think is where this guy really shines. I just think he looks super fantastic. Just got all the nice detail there with the you know, the tail spikes sticking out over his shoulders. I think that his legs have a great proportion to it, where it actually, with a lot of Snarl toys, I feel like it kind of just like ends down here, and then the actual, back section of the dinosaur sticks like way out, whereas his actually look fairly proportionate. I just think he looks super, super good. Now, in terms of articulation, the head is on a ball joint here, so it gets a pretty decent range. It is kind of faced, like the ball joint is situated a little bit forward on the head, so his head does kind of like shift side to side when you rotate it. So not a perfect, axis there, but still it works well enough. The shoulders, like I showed off earlier, are on those ratcheting joints out to the side. Obviously, they bump into the tail at a certain point, and then they can actually rotate out to the side on this joint here, which works pretty well. It's got a bicep swivel right there, a pretty deep elbow bend, and then if you want to unlock this piece on the shoulder here, he can bend it up even further. It just looks a little bit strange just because it's mostly a transformation joint. Other weird thing is that this little panel here does kind of like separate a little bit when you're untabbing that section, which is I don't know, feels a little flimsy. I haven't really had any problems with it. Like I think it's fine, but it I don't know, has kind of a weird vibe to it. And then the wrists are on a swivel. He's got a waist cut. The hips can go forward on a nice ratchet joint and back and out to the side. And then he's got a thigh swivel, maybe a click over 90 degrees of bend at the knee, so that works pretty well there. And then the ankles, despite the fact that they are made up of two separate sections, they tab into each other, and he does have a pretty decent ankle tilt. And, when I first saw this design, I thought that it would have the issue of like these kind of constantly coming undone, but they really don't. They stay pretty well together when you're in robot mode. And then the feet can just tilt down. So yeah, pretty good articulation on this guy. And all the joints, for the most part, feel pretty good. That's been kind of a problem with the last couple of these guys, like with both Slug and Sludge. The ratchets were just like not ideal, so they constantly want to kind of like, on Slug, like, the ratchets feel fine, but just the way that the body is proportioned, he's constantly wanting to like lean back a little bit. And on Sludge, the ratchets just are not strong enough. Like, you can tighten them up a little bit, but he always, again, wants to lean back a little bit. On Snarl, that feels pretty good. All of the joints feel really nice, and then he also just has, a better center of gravity, so it doesn't, want to lean back as much. The one joint on him that is too loose is the outward hip joint. Like, you can see the legs are super floppy off to the side, which, again, I'd rather these be loose than like this be loose. This is a nice tight ratchet, and the knees are nice and tight and feel pretty good. It's a little bit annoying, but like I don't usually have problems actually like standing him or anything. Like, he doesn't slide to the right or left or anything. But when you pick them up, you can flop them around like that. And also, when you bring them out to the side, it's like to this point, then they start to tighten up. So it's like from here to like here feels totally fine. And then once you get past a certain point, then it kind of just like flops down a little bit more loosely. It's not like super, super loose or anything, but loose enough that you can do this, which is, not great. But I'd say that's my one biggest problem with this figure. And even that is not the end of the world. So pretty good overall. This chest came undone there. It's weird. Usually that tabs in pretty securely. But yeah, obviously we can give him his sword here, which he can hold, and he looks pretty good holding it. And then in terms of storage, the same storage is available in this mode, and in this mode it works a lot better. Just having the sword stored on his back, like that works a lot better for me, whereas that same port does not really make for very pretty storage in dinosaur mode, but here works just fine. Now, in terms of comparisons in this mode, just for the standard ones, here he is again with Optimus Prime and Sideswipe, just so you can see how he stacks up with them. Towering over them, obviously. Nice, big, chunky leaders. The Studio Series Dinobots works pretty well. Here he is again with the Power of the Prime Snarl and the oversized Black Mamba version. So you can see definitely a lot bigger there. And again, like, I think that they were kind of comparable in terms of like which you liked a little bit better in dinosaur mode. In robot mode, it's a clean wash. Like the Power of the Primes Snarl mold was one that I never really liked in terms of the robot mode, just because I feel like the proportions look a little weird. The shoulders attach at the very top rather than how they're sculpted to attach like in the middle of this joint. So it makes it look like he just has like a weird bulbous upper arm section. Yeah, I was never a huge fan of the robot mode of this guy, but this one definitely nails it, so that's very nice. And then, of course, here he is again, if we can get them all in frame here, with our other Studio Series Dinobots. with Slag and Grimlock and Sludge there, just so you can see how the four of them look together. He's pretty much the same height as all the three of them. I think Grimlock is like very, very minorly taller. Sludge is a little tiny bit taller than Snarl. I think he might be the shortest out of the four, but it's not by a lot. And then, you know, just for fun, we'll get on Swoop here, who's the best version of Swoop we've got right now is the Black Mamba version, and he obviously doesn't quite scale with them. And then if she would even show up on frame, there's there's Slash. So yeah, pretty good so far. Just waiting on them to do Swoop, which will be pretty exciting. But so far, these are all pretty good. I would say that out of the four of them, I still think that by kind of a significant margin, Grimlock is still my favorite. Like, I think that he's just like got the cleanest, most intuitive transformation, and all of the joints feel the best on him. He doesn't really have any loose joints. He's got the fewest problems. I think that he works the best. I'd say that Snarl probably comes in second. I think that quality-wise of the figure, he's a little bit better than Slag and Sludge, which is it's nice to see, because it did kind of feel like they were just like slowly going down in quality as they went along. So it's nice to see that we've, you know, brought back up here to the top. I will say, this is more prevalent in dinosaur mode, and I could have talked about it then, but I kind of forgot. Most of his like dinosaur bits, like the head and then like the front legs and then his toes in robot mode, are not done in the same gold as the rest of them. They're because, you know, they're pieces that end up like, you know, hiding away and stuff like that. So they would rub up against other plastic. They're just cast in orange, which does make him look a little bit different than them. Like where the actual gold is done, it matches fairly well. But he does kind of just have like orange parts that the other ones don't really have, because it's supposed to meant to mimic the gold a little bit more. Not a huge deal. I hardly notice it a lot of the time, but it is a slight like color scheme difference that he has as compared to the other three. So, you know, that might bug you, but whatever. But yeah, that's, not a whole lot else to say about him. Again, a really solid figure. I definitely think that, yeah, he comes in second place for me in terms of the Studio Series Dinobots. Really, again, the only issues that I have with him are the floppy side-to-side legs, which doesn't end up being much of a practical problem most of the time, and the fact that the dinosaur looks a little bit wider than I'd like, and I could use the plates being a little bit bigger. But all things told, I think he's a fairly good figure. And, Snarl has always been kind of my least favorite out of the Dinobots. I don't dislike him. I just, like all of the other ones better. So it's nice to see a figure of him that really, gets me excited about the character again. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. Another thing to mention, I really appreciate that the tail pieces actually have like a filler here, so it's not just like hollow on the back, because these pieces are hollow, obviously, but I just like that it has that actually filled in, so it's not ugly, and it's just simply for the back of the figure, which I do appreciate. But yeah, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Make sure to check me out on my Instagram account. That's toys.n.art. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Studio Series 86 Leader Class Snarl.